Thanks, Bill. Just looking at my watch here. So when I stop talking, we get to eat. So I'll try to make it efficient. Thanks for having me. I'm Gurminder Minhas, the Managing Director of Performance BioFilaments. We are a biomaterials company focused on developing new and novel applications for cellulose fibers, specifically nanofibrillated cellulose. We have a very narrow focus, primarily because if you see our shareholders, Mercer and Resolute, are active in the forest product sector as well. They are competitors to each other. So in the traditional markets, paper and tissue, we're going to let them do their thing. So we get to do the fun stuff. We get to explore new opportunities where a cellulosic fiber has been underutilized in the past. Our technical team is here. So our labs are right at part of the PPC. So we've got Keith, Pablo, Michael, and Jenny here. So if you have any technical questions, please do reach out to them. But what we're focusing on as far as application development is things such as improving strength, rheology, and other properties in materials such as concrete and mortars, polymers, nonwovens, industrial fluids, and other domains. Some exciting news is that our commercial plant, which is actually going to be owned and operated by Resolute Forest Products, started commissioning November 15. So it's actually going through commissioning right now, and we expect to have commercial supply of NFC from that plant, which is located in Saguenay, Quebec, come January, February of this year. So Gustavo mentioned that is in Quebec. There was nothing against BC. I would love to have the plant here, but it made a lot of sense with respect to capital cost savings. This plant actually is a $38 million undertaking, $27 million directly, plus an additional $11 million to support the rest of the facility. And the reason we located it here is because we were able to take a portion of an existing Resolute facility and basically cut our capital cost for this plant by about 60%, quite substantial. The other reasons are very practical. Trained labor force is already there. All the electricity that is going to be used to produce our material is going to be green. So a lot of good reasons to locate the plant there. But if we have similar opportunities in BC, we're definitely interested. Again, we've got Mercer right here as well. So there's opportunities to have additional plants above and beyond this first 7,000 tons of capacity. And as far as we know, this is the largest capacity plant of its kind in the world. So we're pretty excited. So what I'm going to do, and not get too technical, but I'm going to talk about some of our key applications, some of the work that we've done, and some of the things that have happened, whether it's luck or timing or not, that we're actually taking advantage of to create a lot of market pull in some of our key application areas. So we're focused on applications such as concrete and mortars, industrial nonwovens, nonwoven materials, industrial fluids, and polymeric materials. We've actually been working on these application areas since 2014. So it didn't happen overnight. Basically, our shareholders agreed to make the capital investment in the plant after about 6 years of market and application development. So it did not happen overnight. We've been actually, again, well supported by our shareholders to do this development activity. So in concrete and mortars, when we actually add the NFC to concrete, we actually improve internal curing. We basically hold moisture into the concrete for a longer period of time as it dries. What that does is it causes an effect called better internal curing that mitigates cracking, reduces rebar corrosion, increases long-term durability and sustainability. So how we can help, for example, the Canadian Concrete Association teamed up with the government of Canada and introduced a roadmap to net zero by 2020. And I'll be the first one to admit when we add our material into concrete, the carbon footprint of that cubic meter of concrete does not change. But if we improve the rebar, reduce rebar corrosion, improve durability, a project can actually have a longer service life. So if you look at a bridge deck needs repair on a regular basis. Not necessarily here because we've got a relatively mild climate, but if you go back east, Toronto, Montreal, some of the potholes are the size of some motorbikes there. So repair, if we can actually reduce the cracking on a bridge deck and reduce the amount of time and effort it's going to take to maintain that bridge deck, we can actually improve the overall durability and lifespan of that project. Then we're going to be improving the overall sustainability of that sector. Another area we've been working on is mining and wastewater. So we actually have a patent on this with U of A. So NFC has been demonstrated to improve material handling characteristics by strengthening mining products and byproducts. So the mining products are basically the ores. The ores sometimes are challenging to deal with. We can actually transform these into a state where they're much easier to transport between various unit operations of a facility. And the other key is in byproducts. So basically, NFC can treat mine tailings and other industrial process waters in a very efficient way. We just can't talk about the details, but we just recently wrapped up a project here in BC where we demonstrated significant improvements in coal fine tailings, where the erosion is minimized when these tailings get rained on, and in the summertime when it's dry and they're exposed to wind, there's much less dust that happens in these tailings. And typically for problematic tailings, you would use something like a synthetic polymer, a polyacrylamide. So we've demonstrated similar benefits to the incumbent synthetic materials with a natural additive. And actually, I don't have it here, but same thing. So the Canadian Mining Innovation Council introduced an initiative. I believe it's funded for $125 million, the MICA initiative. That's to improve and accelerate new technologies that can help the mining sector become more sustainable. So aside from the nanocellulose that we're developing, I think there's a lot of other opportunities for some of the materials that are being developed by this group to help both the concrete sector and the mining sector improve their overall sustainability footprint. And that's just in Canada. Canada's a small market. When you look at North America in general, that translates that to Europe and the rest of the world, the market is significant. This is something we've been working on for a long, long time. Polymer biocomposites. This is basically adding NFC and other cellulose fibers to enhance the properties of materials such as polypropylene and polyamide. One of the first calls that we got when we launched the company was from Ford. They were very, very interested in working with us to develop this application further. They introduced us to a suite of people in their supply chain. We actually demonstrated that we could deliver the same strength as polypropylene reinforced plastic, but it's 16% lighter weight. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. At that time, the actual material didn't meet their spec. They said no. And I'm talking about a tier 1 automotive supplier in Canada, can't mention their name. Middle of last year, they came back and said, you know what, that 20% didn't meet the spec. So rather than be aggressive, let's target something much lower. So now we're actually in discussions to supply commercial quantities of a biocomposite that I'm not going to get into the details, glass fiber, coupling agent, polypropylene, and NFC. And we're basically dealing with companies who can take the constituents, compound it, supply it to the supply chain, and eventually end up in vehicles. And again, this is the same company that shut the door on us about 4 years ago. So I was talking to Emily earlier on. These things don't happen overnight, so be patient. It does take time. So I am actually a little bit short on time. I can sit here and talk more for another 2 minutes, or we can have some lunch. The other key message I want to deliver is we are here, we're active. We do have a handful of collaborations. You've probably seen our logo on a couple of slides. We're always open to additional discussions on how we can actually accelerate not only just NFC into some of these markets, but what we're finding is that there's a lot of complementary products that we can bring to our current existing customer base. The concrete example, I get asked all the time if we have a product that can displace lignosulfonates. We don't, because we're narrowly focused on nanocellulose. But if there's somebody out there working on lignin, we'd be happy to listen. That's just one example. I'm looking forward to the afternoon talking more about the opportunities for collaboration within this group. So I think I'm the last speaker. We're going to have lunch. Two minutes to go.